Games podcast is on the air. Welcome, everybody. This is your host, Adam Mamawala, here with the other host, Kevin McCaffrey. Kevin, how you doing over there?
I'm fine. You know, off air, the big Patreon subscribers will know, who get to watch the live feed. I'm just making up benefits we've never had and never will now. But we were just talking about Adam's impressions, that Adam has the ability to do impressions. That is a very good way to bring us and this season onto the air. This is one of my favorite episodes we've done. We're doing the big season preview episode for this year, which, Adam, do you remember the first year we did that?
I do. It was 2018, and optimism was in the air, and, well, we were wrong.
Yeah, offense is needed
blue
fixing.
hoodie and blue hat with red trimmings, brought to you by Benjamin Moore.
Thank you.
But you know what? We still enjoy it every year. We've been. Our optimism has certainly wavered in recent years, but nevertheless, it's a pleasure to be here. And before we introduce our special guest, a bit of news, perhaps bittersweet news for the few people who might give a shit. But if you're listening to this right now, first of all, thank you for doing so and for sticking with us all these years. 2018 was the first year we did this, and I guess that would make this the, what is that, seventh season preview episode that we've done. A time during which the Cubs have won 0 playoff games, but we'll get to that later. This is actually the penultimate, the second to last episode of Away Games podcast ever. You know, Kevin and I still love each other. We
do. Yes, it's not your fault. I mean, it's definitely not your fault if you're hearing this. If you're not hearing this, it is your fault.
That's true. But we've had a good run. Kevin and I both have a lot of other things that we're focusing on, and we're realistic about the place in Cubs world that this podcast has held. We're going to do a final episode that is kind of a retrospective on some of the favorite moments that we've had, some of the cool interviews that we got to do, and I can't speak for Kevin, but I'm certainly still going to be tweeting like a madman.
Oh,
I
sure.
intend to use Away Games Pod Twitter until I am, dead and in my grave. So
yeah, exactly.
It's my place to vent and occasionally complain about the Bulls losing to the Wizards, even though it's largely a baseball Twitter.
I mean,
handle,
we need that. I still think that's on brand, so we'll stay there. Podcast is coming to an end. The haters said we wouldn't make it, and honestly, great call by the haters. They got to give it to them on this one. I was going to say, before we introduce Ken, I do want to be very clear. If this person is listening, there's some asshole who claims to have the trademark for Away Games podcast. If you're listening, and I forget your name because I couldn't care less what it is, I want to be very clear that we're not doing this because we feel pressured by you in any way. No, there was a guy who said we had to cease and desist using this podcast. We're 7
we'll
years
cease and
into
desist
this.
on our own terms. You can't fire us. We quit.
That email was almost the only thing that kept us going. We were gonna quit, and then
Spitecast. We were gonna do a Spitecast.
Yeah, exactly. Spitecast. So we'll get into the reasons, the reasons why, and we'll talk about the all our favorite moments on the next
let's just
episode.
Say it. Kevin's pregnant.
Oh God, I'm not keeping
got a lot on his plate.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful announcement. And as we said, I forgot. It's weird. I forgot our team hasn't won a playoff game since the 7 years. But
not great.
We're getting out of the way, and you're welcome for that. And now we'll get out of the way with the big announcement. Thank you for listening all this time, if you have. For whatever amount of time you have, we'll do the big Ender episode next week. But today, a tradition unlike any other, the azaleas are in bloom, and we have our good friend, Ken Schultz is here to join us for one final season preview. Welcome, Ken. How you doing?
I will remember you.
Oh, man.
Ken Schultz wearing purple-rimmed glasses and Ryan Sandberg shirt, courteous of Obvious Shirts. Ryan Sandberg is still his favorite. Ken, how you feeling, man?
I mean, after that, emotional. Yeah. Our first season preview episode, I believe, was just before I moved out of New York and moved back to home games, Chicago.
Wow.
So
home games.
that I would be, in the city for the next round of glory. And I've been in the city, so got that part right.
You likely will be, again, I suppose eviction pending. There is a decent chance that you're going to be around for the next good times.
I mean, being comedian slash freelance writer slash whatever the hell I am, eviction pending is always hanging over my head.
Yeah, one of
So,
the few constants.
Yeah,
yeah,
we have that as our signature, the way doctors have like, DDS or whatever after it's like, Ken Schultz eviction pending.
Yeah, you pee.
EVP, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that really does put it into perspective how long it's been that we were
Yeah.
all still local New Yorkers at the time.
Yeah. And we're doing this and we'll be talking about, I'm sure later on, you'll be ending the pod just a few weeks before I come back to New York for a week to rejoin you for the first time. We'll
Hell
all be
yeah.
going to a game at Citi Field together again since I live there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I mean, I'm just kind of all up in my head and my feels right now, but it's great to be here as always. This is literally one of my favorite Zooms of every single year, despite the fact that it's gotten darker and darker as it's gone on. And yeah, there's going to be some stuff coming up in this.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
don't
I
worry.
believe the first four, 18, 19, 20, and 21, those first four season previews, I predicted the Cubs to win a World Series and actually felt good about it.
Yeah.
And then that stopped in 2022 and also last year.
Hmm.
But we'll get into that. So the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna do a breakdown of some of the categories we've done in previous years. Now I went back and I listened to our episode from last year. I don't believe that either of you did that. Maybe you did, but I'm going to also be sharing what we said last year. Some of it is surprising. In some cases we sound like geniuses. In some cases we sound like people who don't even know what the sport of baseball is. But that's part of the fun of doing a season preview episode. So I guess a good place to start was last year. I think for the first time, because of how bleak things seemed, we started the episode by giving our excitement level heading into the season. Last year, I led the way with a 5 out of 10 excitement. Ken had a 4. He had to talk himself into a 4. And then Kevin had a 2 because he didn't think that 1 was possible. So are we any higher than that this year? Ken? Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. So I'm going to split. I think, did I split it up last year between excitement for baseball and excitement for the Cubs?
Yes, you were a 10 for baseball itself and a 4 for the Cubs.
So yeah, 10 for baseball again. Like if that's not the case any April, like check my pulse. Like at that point, that if something has gone horribly wrong, if I'm not excited for baseball overall. Like last week, I got up just in time to turn on the last couple innings of the Padres Dodgers in Seoul for their game 1. Got to see the ball go through Cronenworth's glove in real time, which was interesting.
Yeah. How about that? How you like it now, San Diego?
Yeah, really. That's
regards from Durham.
40-year revenge for Leon Durham. Oh my God, didn't even think of that. Oh,
yeah.
Man, feeling just the hate flow through me in the best way. So that's great.
Happy 40th anniversary, San Diego.
Yeah, but like totally caught the vibes immediately. Like just I was hooked instantly as soon as that happened. So yeah, I can't wait for everything baseball coming up this year. In terms of the Cubs, last year I was a 4. This year I am a solid 3, baby.
Oh no, it's gotten worse.
Yeah. In a year where they have improved their record from the previous year, which is the first time in quite a while that's happened.
True.
Yeah, I am sinking that a little bit because last year, and as we've gone over dozens of times in some very neurotic Facebook chats, one of the big lessons I've learned over the past couple of years, ever since the purge of 2021, is that winning just by itself is not going to be enough to get me back. Like that is the level of hurts that I was from, and still am. Honestly.
Yeah, which I think is like, to me, that's a thing that sounds pessimistic, but I think is actually romantic, like, and ideal in some way, because I think that it isn't just about winning. And that's something that we all felt after 2016. We all had the brief worries of like, oh, will this mean as much to me? And it really, really did afterwards. And I was so happy to experience how like fraught that next year was and how intense that amazing Washington Nationals Game 5 that Adam was there for was. And I think that is a great point, Ken, about how it isn't just winning. I expect the Cubs to win more this year too, and that doesn't necessarily do it for me. It's something beyond that. Like I'm rooting for them to win every single game, and I'll be happy when they do. But I just think that's a great, just such a nugget of a central point and central thesis that is also part of why we're leaving the show too. I think like it is that's a huge thing.
Yeah. When I think about that run, and even I'll include like 2015 in that, I'll include 2017 in that, 2018 until the wheels kind of came off at the end. It reminds me of that Andy Bernard quote from the final episode of The Office. It's something to the effect of like, "I wish you knew you were in the good times when you were in them." Like,
Yeah.
I still kind of feel that way. Well, Ken starts us off with a 3. Kevin, are we going higher or lower? What are you feeling?
Well, Ken, did you have a final tag on that?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, part of it is we did know a little bit we were in the good times. That, I mean, that's what the whole of 2016 was. And as Kevin and you referenced, even most of 2017 and 2018 up until the very bitter end, like we lived those up. And
Yeah.
we formed that kind of that emotional connection to those guys that is what makes today that lack of emotional connection so jarring to me, even in a year that went as well as most of last year did, at least the middle part anyway.
Yeah.
And so I find myself at this point where I'm having to like find emotional workarounds because this isn't something that I've consciously embarked on. Like I haven't been like, oh, fuck Jed, so I'm just not gonna, I'm out. This is something that the emotions that came so easily, especially during the time that the core was there, just aren't. And it's something I've had to deal with and have learned that it's something I'm going to have to build back up gradually. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that's, and I feel similar in a lot of ways too, because there are guys who I feel the same about, or in the same category about as like the peak Cubs times. And the peak Cubs times, by the way, for me, weren't just 2016. It's ebbed and flowed throughout all of time. I mean, like the ways I felt about Aramis Ramirez, the way I felt about Carlos Zambrano and Kerry Wood. I mean, there are guys on this team who I think are/can get to that category. Like, I love watching Justin Steele, Adbert Alzolay, Ian Happ, Kyle fucking Hendricks, like Chris Morel, if I didn't say him already. Seiya and Shota are guys I'm really excited for. There's a good chunk of guys on this team who do reach that level for me. But I think Ken, I'm putting myself at a 4. I think in terms of enthusiasm about the season this year. And it's not that I'm not keeping up. I'm going to watch every time I can. I'm going to read everything I can. I'm a pretty elite sicko Cubs fan. Like I'm very up there. But I'm not breathing it the same way. It's not coming as easy. I think about it in a way where people say, I think, I watch The Bachelor, not to brag. I do it all the time. And when you hear people like that show, and a lot of people in real life talk about like, you hear people get horny about the hard times and about like, oh, marriage is about work. I don't want it to be. Like I don't want it to be work. I want to be in love. And so that's why I'm at a 4. And the only other thing I'll say on this point is I love Adam giving the rundown of how we were last year. You could not put an emotional avatar on each of us better than that. Adam saying he led the way with the optimism, Ken saying he talked himself into something that will get us into this year, and then me going, can I get any lower technically? And like I thought that was a perfect rundown.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Cubs should embrace that sort of mindset. We there was a lot of controversy about the what is it? The see it? What's their slogan for this year?
Find the see
Find
it.
the clip, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
but I think Cubs 2024, life's short, then you die. Sponsored by Kevin McCaffrey could be a good option. Once again, go ahead, Ken.
I just off of what you just said, the Cubs slogan for this year is "You have to clit," and nothing could appeal to me less. Sorry,
Ken just lost another point. Yeah, it turns out you don't have to. So the rest of us
fact,
should.
Also
but-
the slogan for Atlanta's Pride celebration. So that's their idea of inclusivity.
Yes.
As is often the case here, I guess my optimism is higher than yours. Perhaps I'm talking myself into it. Last year I was a 5. I'm going to give myself a 6 this year. I have a couple different metrics for how I assessed my level of excitement. Now, in a year where I am locked in, I am watching and or following pretty much every spring training game. I have watched very little spring training. I've been like aware of what's happening. I've been following it, but I have not sat down and watched even like an hour of a spring training game. So that's not a good sign. However, I still find myself doing the thing that I do every year where I'm like at this time of year looking at starting to look at my personal calendar and how it lines up with like, oh well, the Cubs have a day game in this game, so I'll be able to watch that one, and then I have a long drive that afternoon, so I'll be able to listen to Pat and Ron on this particular drive. Like I'm starting to look through the rest of my year in a way that is very much related to the Cubs, and also thinking about like what games I'm going to be able to go to. I also am going to Dallas this weekend, so I'm going to be at the game on Sunday. I will be seeing Shota Imanaga's first start, unless anything changes there.
I think it has changed.
Has it?
Imanaga's now starting the home opener.
Yeah.
Ah, damn.
So you're going to miss
Who do I
something.
see then?
Yeah.
I
will
guess
be
I
there.
see Assad or Wicks.
Wicks is going third, I think.
So then I see Wicks.
Yeah.
That's good.
Damn, I would have. I was very excited about the prospect of seeing Shota Imanaga, but either way, I'll get to see a new stadium. So, all that to say, like I'm excited, and I think that as soon as the season begins, I'll be pretty locked in because last year I didn't feel a lot of feelings, and then I still got very into it once the season began. But it does feel different, and it doesn't feel like how it did when we started this podcast. And that's not the reason that we're not doing it anymore, but it is like something that just is kind of sad.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say on the enthusiasm stuff, I never want my waning, and again, still psychopathic Cubs fan who's going to be pretty locked in no matter what. I never want my feelings to get in the way of other people who can get there. And if you can, as long as you're not being a big dick about it and trying to like
Sure.
you tweet shitty things about Javi Baez in the year 2024, as long as that's not how you get down with the current team, like I don't want any of my feelings to get in the way of anyone's enthusiasm. I want Wrigley rocking and packed with people who are just happier than they've ever been all the time. And if you're listening and you're one of those people, I'm so happy for you genuinely, and I want that to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do, I definitely get what you're saying, Ken, in terms of like the emotional component of it and that being like just as important, if not more so, than the winning. I think the only thing that gives me faith moving forward is that like I felt that way about other Cubs teams. And I remember in 2003 when they lost, and especially the way that they lost, part of why I was so sad was this realization of like, this exact group of guys is never going to play together again.
Big time.
And like I'm never going to care this much, and I'm never going to love anybody as much as Sammy Sosa, and I'm never like there. I had all those feelings, but then I did feel that way about a team in the future, and in the same way that like you grow up on the Jordan Bulls, and you're like I'm never going to care about a team that much, and then 2010, 2011 comes around.
Yeah, Rose and Noah show
I
up.
love
Yeah.
that team, right? So I am optimistic that even if it's not right now or not this year, like I will at some point feel that way again. And I think for you, Ken, honestly, like it might be until Jed Hoyer is not part of this organization anymore for you to get over that hump. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But let's move on to a more optimistic and fun category. Cubs team MVP. Now, last year, Ken and Kevin, you both you shared a vote for Hap. My vote, and I actually didn't remember this. My vote for team MVP was that Nico becomes Rhino Light if he stays healthy and has a great year. And I guess when you look at Nico's numbers last year, like very high stolen base numbers. I think he scored 93 runs. Like he did have a very good season. I certainly don't think anybody would describe him as Rhino Light.
Oh, it's light.
Real light. Yeah, I guess operative word being light.
But the steals are good. I mean, Prime Rhino, the steals numbers are getting there. That's close. And
Sure.
the defense is very good.
Yeah,
So
he won a Gold Glove. Hap won a Gold Glove as well. And Hap, I don't think he had quite the offensive season that he had the previous year, but still a good season. I think the objective correct answer, at least if we're talking about offensive player, is certainly Cody Bellinger. Obviously, Seiya had the great second half, but those were our picks last year. Where do you land this year in terms of a team MVP?
I'll lead this one. I thought the MVP. I had the thought of like, you know how sometimes there's years where the MVP voting goes like, we're ignoring who the best player is, and this is like more of a glue and vibe guy. You know, throw Phil Rizzuto a bone. You know, shit like that. Like in that way, and it's not a full throw a bone, but I think like you could say Dansby Swanson would be a prediction that way. Full Gold Glove, Gold Glover at shortstop, a guy who is clearly a leader in that locker room and holds people together, a guy who has won. And, you know, you have to fight him to get out of the lineup, that kind of a thing. I think if we're talking MVP in terms of what affects a baseball game in a measurable way, I'm going to say Seiya Suzuki, because I think the way he broke out in the second half, we've seen that happen with players who come over from other leagues, Japan, Korea, etc. And obviously he's killing the ball in the, in spring training, which if spring training mattered that much, we would be talking about Cy Young Award winner Hayden Wesneski, I suppose.
Right.
But, it's, I think Seiya in terms of numbers, Dansby as far as like a glue guy.
Yeah.
Dansby appears to be kind of the guy that the team kind of just assumes is the leader type that they rally around. That kind of Terry Pendleton was the first name that came to mind when you mentioned that kind of category. And yeah, kind of the same vibe. That's someone who definitely has tools and noticeable tools. And in a year where the Braves kind of in '91, where they went from like the dregs of the league to this surprising team that took baseball by storm, Pendleton was the batting champion and kind of the veteran that kind of said, okay, jump on my back, here we go. And yeah, you see Dansby definitely wanting to be that kind of guy who is hey, my back is big and wide, and this metaphor is already being destroyed. Don't go any further into it, but
you have to back it.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. For me, I'm going to go Justin Steele on this.
Great.
One. And the numbers obviously make it a choice that should be one of the first names that spring to mind. But even more than like just the numbers he put up last year, I think of it in terms of how rare it is in baseball to find an ace who's able to eat innings. Like in a year where Blake Snell wins the Cy Young, and deservedly so, like put up really great numbers the entire year, to have is someone who put up the performance Justin Steele did, and even with the injury, was able to amass 173.1 innings pitched last year, far and away a career high, which is a concern, but still, he was able to at least get in the vicinity of John Lester innings territory while being peak Lester in terms of being able to utilize the fastball and slider in the outside corner in ways that just make batters have no idea what the hell they're doing. Like, that is a weapon in 2024 baseball. And if he's healthy this year and can approach that, like, that's something that very few teams can claim to have.
I think Steele is the leading Cubs candidate for exemplifying the phrase, he's got that dog in him. Like, he's just that sort of dude. And he does have that Lester thing, which I really respect, which is like very workmanlike attitude. And also, and there was a game against Houston a couple years ago when he was sick, and we saw this displayed, where it's like, even if he gets knocked around early, you just have this faith that he's going to settle in and like gut his way through 6 ugly innings if he has to. And that's a super, super valuable part of your team, because as we saw too much with Tyone early in the season, like it's such a detriment to the team and the bullpen when a starter can't make it out of 2 innings, especially, if it's the first of a eight games in a row sort of stretch. Like, it really has a ripple effect. So I think that's a great pick. I also had Seiya. My prediction for Seiya is that he kind of carries that second half into the whole season. He makes the All-Star team and bolsters the middle of the Cubs order. And the other thing that's good is that, like, when there was that awful dropped fly ball situation in Atlanta, there was this part of me that was like, oh, fuck, is this going to be like something that we think about with Seiya all the time? And it really doesn't feel that way. Like, I think because of how everything else kind of collapsed at the same time, it would be pretty ridiculous to blame Seiya for all of the stuff that went down. So to me, it's like almost like I'm aware of it, but it's not really something that I associate with Suzuki. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a silver lining to blowing it harder after that, right? I mean,
Right.
and that sounds like a goofy thing to say, but it makes me happy for Seiya too, because I don't think the team was getting there anyway. And obviously he so carried things late. And yeah, I mean, I think those MVP picks are things to be enthusiastic about. In terms of nice things, like having a homegrown ace, a homegrown Cy Young finalist, got jobbed dropping to 5th somehow. That was dumb. I see no argument for that. But having a homegrown like ace like Steele who gets to start opening day, I'm excited for him to be on the mound opening day as well.
Absolutely.
Is very cool. So
yeah, for sure.
There is one bit of caution I want to throw out there regarding Seiya, that it seems like the general consensus in Cubland, and even with writers like Sahadev, it feels like you're getting that from him too, is that idea that he's really reached a new level with that last 2 months. And he was legitimately one of the best hitters in baseball. Like, I think by weighted run created plus 3rd best hitter in baseball over that span. So that's, incredible that that's there. The pattern with his career to this point in the major leagues has been really white hot performance like that, but also some real long lows. And it's going to be a matter of, can you reduce that period where everybody slumps, obviously, but can you
Mhm.
reduce that to say maybe 1 month instead of two? Like that's what's going to really put him over the top and make
Yeah.
him reach the next level if he's able to do that.
Yeah.
I also want to say, and we obviously don't have all the information yet, but regarding Seiya's translator, Toy could never. Toy could never.
Oh, no. The only
That would maybe be the thing that would be the final straw for Ken, maybe, is if Toy is embroiled in a Pete Rose scandal. Yeah.
the only thing Toy can bet
Exactly.
on is my heart.
Yeah, and the odds are good.
I believe last year Ken took the time to look up how to say snack in Japanese. So
Yeah, we got a little Duolingo action in this.
now this one's never as much fun, but we're gonna go to regression candidates. Now last year, you both went with Dansby, which is a pretty strong candidate given how good of a year he was coming off of to get signed by the Cubs. I went with Hendricks, and I'm thrilled to have been wrong. And then Ken jumped in at the end and said evergreen regression candidate Jed Hoyer. So that's where we landed last year. I'm going to kick this one off, if I may. I feel like Cody Bellinger feels like the obvious choice because of how stellar a year he had. But I actually don't think there's going to be that much regression, if for no other reason than the fact that like he's probably going to want to opt out and get the bag that he didn't get this offseason. So I think he'll have a good year. I'm not happy about this pick. I am afraid of a full season of Adbert as closer. I'm afraid about like durability concerns, and I would love to be completely wrong. But given
Durability
that
is
he
a
has
fair shout
stuff,
on that, though, and that has been since the minors. That
yeah,
is,
not because I don't think he has the
yeah,
stuff or the makeup to be closer. I was thrilled to see him have the success that he did last year, but
yeah.
I'm just afraid that that kind of workload and that expectation for the whole season might end up being too much. So I would love to be wrong, but that's Adbert is my begrudging pick. Ken, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. And so in this category, I tried to think, okay, so Cody Bellinger, as you said, is kind of the obvious pick, and the exit velocity is a concern, whatever. But I would love, honestly, if he didn't regress, and that kind of made everybody rethink what the value of exit velocity is, especially with that two-strike approach. So, but that was a concern. And then Adbert's health. Kyle Hendricks is a concern just because it feels like he's always kind of teetering on the magic vanishing, and I never want to see that happen. So a lot went in. Are there BABIP guys maybe that had a great BABIP year? And then it was like, nah, fuck it, Jed Hoyer. Jed fucking Hoyer.
Get him.
Constantly, always, till the end of his goddamn time here, which can't come soon enough. Yeah. So look, in terms of starting this offseason, couldn't have been better. Couldn't have gone better for you, Jed. You stole Craig Counsell away. That was your Joe Madden move. That is,
Yeah.
you're living up to the Theo complex that is undergirded everything he's done since he ascended into the team president position. So he got to have the press conference, got to trot out the smug fuck look for everybody, and everybody toasted the smug fuck. Well done. You got it done. And then you figure, okay, this is the first move. Here we go. Last year was the 83. That was maybe their equivalent of the 2014 season. Let's go in overdrive. Who is going to be our John Lester? And we waited. And we waited some more. And Dansby said, hey, maybe re-signing Belly would be a good idea. And we still waited. And it turned out the biggest move of his fucking offseason was to bring back last year's team, essentially. So congratulations. Like, the one thing he wanted above everything else this year, his one goal was to win over Scott Boras. You did it. Great job.
Yeah,
and
I guess
now you better hope that Craig Counsell is the move that puts them over the top, because that's the only thing you did.
And I guess Major League Baseball across the board sort of beat Boris this year, if you want. And it's like I guess it's like debatable how you put that, right? But none of Boris's big clients got anywhere near the numbers they thought they were going to get. Jordan Montgomery just signed a 1-year 25 with Arizona, I want to say.
Which is a lot for 1 year, but it's not what he wanted.
A lot for 1 year, but also it's like 1 year, who cares? Yeah, basically we replaced Marcus Stroman with Shota Imanaga, which I'm down. Sure, that's cool. The Imanaga contract is, bizarre to the. I don't need to. I don't want to go to grad school to understand the contracts of the players that are here. But Imanaga for Stroman, Bellinger for Bellinger. Council in for Ross, which you could say is an improvement. And then the TBD, right? The deal of a big-time prospect in Jackson Ferris for a highly ranked prospect and Michael Busch at first base. We'll see. But yeah, I think like that is the thing that has infuriated me the most over the past few years, and really, if you break down since the Ricketts took over the team, the payroll of this team ranks about 9.75 in the league, which is 5 places beyond what it ever should be. And it's not that it's an incompetently run team. I don't think it is. I think the ambition doesn't come near matching what it should, and that is and that's a problem. Where it's like Soto was available for trade. If we have the second best farm system, I'm told. Go get Juan Soto, extend Juan Soto. Or obviously Ohtani, who knows, maybe it didn't have a shot. But you can't, maybe we didn't have a shot every superstar in the world. And at some point we should land a star as well. So I will vibe with those points.
I rarely start a sentence this way, but in Jed Hoyer's defense, I do feel like even separately from his baseball work, he does have like smug fuck face. Like
sure.
He has resting hedge fund manager face, and it's not my favorite. Arguably so does Theo, but
Yeah. One of the most punchable faces in baseball. Like
absolutely, yeah.
You have
Alex
to punch
Bregman might be a comp.
I could see that. Yeah, especially when he's no commenting after all of his YouTube fun. As far as regression on this team, it's kind of hard to pick who, right? Because who really exploded last year? It's like Steele was a Cy Young finalist, but I think he's real. I think if he's healthy,
Bellinger.
I think he's real. Bellinger, Bellinger was an MVP, and it's like, yeah, he might regress a touch from the rate stats he had last year, but I think he's just good. So you could say Morel, but I think Morel's a real ass hitter that way. I saw a really cool stat that I didn't know about Morel, that he is one of the best in baseball at attacking strikes. It's a stat called the Seager, because apparently Corey Seager is the most aggressive at hittable pitches in the league. But Christopher Morel is higher up there than you would think, and I think that's a great sign. So as far as regression, I don't think there's gonna be any massive regression from any of the success stories last year, also partially because there wasn't that many spikes. But I think I would say Yan Gomes, because I think it's going to start to shift into a Miguel Amaya world, because I think Craig Counsell isn't going to be as beholden to the leadership vibes of Yan Gomes. So.
You don't think 1.7 WAR is repeatable?
For anyone just listening, Ken Schultz did dramatically throw his arms up in a Steve Holt-esque celebration.
Brock Holt!
Exactly. Let's go next to breakout pitcher. Now, last year, Kevin, this was a miss. You went with Cam Sanders.
Yeah, that's a miss. I still hope he gets up, because he's fucking fun. He has to throw a strike one day, and then it'll be great.
Now, Kevin, you and I also we both said Justin Steele. I said, and this is one of our better predictions. I said Justin Steele is going to become a household name, like somebody that people in baseball know other than just Cubs fans. Kevin, you specifically said Justin Steele is the candidate to start next year's opening day, and
it's hard to get that more right.
Yeah. Ken, you went with Hayden Wisniewski. So, obviously he was up last year. It would be hard to say he had a breakout year. But you also went with Adbert Alzolay. So that's among the better picks that we had. So that's where we were at last year. Who wants to go first this year?
Ken, take it away.
Sure, yeah. This year I'm going to go Javier Assad.
Yes, man.
Yes. Yeah, there's just kind of a lot to like, both numbers-wise and just personality-wise with him.
Totally.
To this point, and it's again still relatively small sample, but 3.06 career ERA, 1.44 ERA plus, 1.286 WHIP, all that will play, especially for a backup starter. and swingman too. And then when they use him out of the bullpen, it feels like that he kind of ramps up almost into like Carlos Zambrano territory in terms of like just letting pure emotions guide him on the mound. And like, yeah, it feels like he pitches is almost like he has something to prove every single time he goes out there. And you really see it in his responses to when he manages like 2 or 3 real solid innings out of the bullpen, or 5 or 6 in the starting role. And just every bit of evidence we've seen so far indicates that this is somebody who can be kind of a solid back end guy who can also be really,
Back
really,
end guy,
really,
ass man.
yeah,
I see what you did there.
OutSports.com, everybody. And who can also be really, really good when you need him out of the bullpen. And that in 2024 is also obviously a very valuable commodity to have.
It's one of those things where I think that strength, because that is something I love about Assad, is that there are guys who you feel like when their role is shifted, you are already bracing for sort of impact on them not really holding up the same. It seems like he doesn't overthink it too much, and it seems like he sort of can be rolled out at any situation and pretty effective. And he who knows if that ends up being a thing where sort of a strength works against him in a way for his own, like if he prefers to start. If Tyone gets healthy, maybe he's the easiest guy to shift back just because it's easier to see him having success in the bullpen than some of the other guys. But I think that's a great pick, and I was between him and Jordan Wicks, so I'll just take the Wicks side of this because I think he's someone who demeanor-wise, everything you've heard about him is everyone. It sounds like he's just an easygoing guy who works hard and believes he should be there, not in like a cocky way, but he's not overthinking it. I think he's just going to be a guy who, is somewhere between like Drew Smiley's career and Ted Lilly's career, sort of a guy who it's like he just ends up being a mid-rotation, mid-back rotation starter that you just don't think about. You plug him in and you like having him there for a long time. So I'll say Wicks.
I also had Jordan Wicks. I think this is the year that he solidifies his place as a middle of the rotation arm. The exact same thoughts that you had. I felt like he was really impressive last year, and I do think that he just has like kind of the right makeup, game wise, attitude wise, rec specs wise. It's all working.
Yeah, great branding with the.
He seemed very, very comfortable last year, being thrown into some pretty high pressure games. And he never seemed. Maybe he's a great actor, and he actually is shitting his pants out there. But like, he seems
Kansas
very,
State's great
very
theater department. Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So I think those are good picks. Now for breakout hitter, this was by far our worst category collectively last year. Now, Kevin, you did mention Seiya Suzuki, so I'll give you credit on that one. You mentioned 2. The other ones we mentioned, and my God, I mean, the podcast should have been canceled after this episode.
Why should we be the first podcast or baseball reporters to ever have to stand behind our predictions, though? Like, does anyone else? I've heard so many told you so's from other podcasts and some Cubs podcasts I've listened to where I'm like, I know you said the opposite shit. I know that, so yeah.
But in the interest of accountability, last year for breakout hitter, I went with Matt Mervis. I think my head was in the right place. I think that it was clear to me that like Hosmer was not going to be the guy there long term, and I was hoping that he would come up and have success. Obviously, that was not the case. Ken, I think you went with the heart on this one, but it would be hard to say you were more off base. Trey Mancini was your pick for breakout hitter, and Kevin, I think maybe takes the cake with a real swing for Edwin Rios, a name I had not thought about until re-listening to this episode. So those are some tough ones, but let's see if we can do better this year.
It's funny that those are all first base options. It's just like what the fuck are the Cubs doing at first? First basemen are supposed to hit. Let's throw someone in there.
Question: Did the Cubs previously, prior to 2023, have a first baseman who was kind of good at the things you want first baseman to be good at? I can't really remember.
I think you're thinking of Eric Karros.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was him or Randall Simon for sure. I don't know, but I'm sure that first baseman was just unaffordable for a team with this sort of budget.
Yeah, and a bad morale guy. You got to get out of
absolutely.
Clubhouse poison. Yeah, you don't want that guy.
I'm gonna go first here. It would be hard to really call this a breakout after such a strong season, but I'm gonna go right now, and I might even go put it on FanDuel using promo code Shohei for an extra boost. I think Christopher Morel's gonna hit 40 home runs this year.
Yes, I am all about this.
I hope he sticks at third base, but either way, I think he's going to get his at bats, and I think he's going to hit 40 home runs.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. He is just, when you saw some trade rumors floated about him online in the offseason, I was just like, man, please don't. Like, it's just baseball wise, I don't know, I'd have to see the deal, but he's just such a guy that makes you happy and is just
Yes.
fun to watch.
He's as close to Javi as we have on this team.
Yeah,
Yes.
can we keep that? Also, it's weird because
Fine,
it's an interesting thing. Obviously, we've never had more access to scouting information and prospect stuff than we do now. But it's interesting to me, both in Javi and Morel's cases, to see how their strengths and weaknesses sort of flipped from early scouting reports too. Because Javi was all bat from what we heard, and then it turns out, oh my God, he's like a wildly gifted defender. And then Christopher Morel, I remember seeing like reputable people in Cubs and scouting circles being like, oh, he's got like Javi defensive abilities over there at third, and that's the only question we have on him. He's obviously athletic, fast, has a hell of an arm, but defense is the problem, and the bat was what people were worried about. So it's an interesting thing that even with all this information, prospects can still surprise you, which is cool. I think Morel's a great breakout, and if he breaks out even further, that's just a lock it in all-star bat for sure. I think the Cubs, this isn't even so much a prediction, but based on the price they paid for him, the opening they have, they sort of have to hope it's Bush at first. Like they have to hope that solidifies over at first with Michael Bush. So it's not even my pick really, but I guess you got to hope it's Bush. But I would say Morel.
Also, the idea of a guy with that last name beating the shit out of the Cardinals would be really satisfying.
Bush's league. Yeah.
I'd be here for that. Yeah, absolutely. So the thing that concerns me about Bush, and this is just kind of a general paranoia.
Also, something that Ken said a lot in the early 2000s.
Yes, yes. The closet.
Yeah. A lot of protests. Yeah.
This is just kind of a general baseball paranoid fan thing that I've got, is that back in the 90s, it seemed like everybody wanted to trade for a Braves prospect and then discovered that when you got that Braves prospect, there was a reason why they unloaded him. And recently it's been more the Rays that teams do that with. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers kind of also fell into that category. And the Cubs have done that a couple times over the past couple. Like, I'm trying to, Zach McKinstry, is that the name? They
got Zach McKinstry from the Dodgers, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure was not nearly as good at prospect as Michael Bush, but when you're getting Dodger prospects, sometimes there tends to be a reason why they're like, yeah, we're okay with that. So, and not saying it's definitely guaranteed to happen here with Bush, but that is kind of always a concern whenever you're trading with like the trendy team whose front office is like the most genius of anybody in baseball.
Right.
So I would like to, reading off the Trey Mancini. Oh God, I apologize to America for that.
Well, Edwin Rios is RIP. So yeah, we're all flopping.
And I'm looking at my notes here, and all I have for this one is in parentheses my heart pick. So my heart will go on apparently. And this year it is going on to Miguel Amaya.
Love that.
Yeah,
love that.
We saw a little bit of it at the start of the year. Like I didn't expect anything from the bats, and in the first month or two, there was definitely a bat there. Now over the entire season, especially I'm sure playing time factored into it, that his offensive stats for the year are not good. And that's something that I would hang my hat on for this pick. But I hope that maybe the first month or two of that bat is playable out over the span of more than 2 or 3 months, just because I would like a Cubs catcher again. The more Miguel Amaya, the less of the usurper who sucks.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for Yan Gomes because we all had that when they signed him to the 2-year deal going into Contreras' last year, and what we wanted to happen with Contreras, who, if you look up after all the Cubs fans dunking on him in the first month, was very good last year. It was maybe like just about the Cardinals' best player. So turns out he's still good. Oopsies. And and it's just, I think we saw the writing on the wall when that happened, because
And also kind of on the subject of Christopher Morel earlier. I don't know if you saw from Monday's spring training game that they played a clip on Marquee that as soon as he and Wilson met over by one of the bullpens, he again leaped into Wilson's arms and just gave him a full-on bear hug. So that's 2 years in a row that Morel has done that, and that's a tradition that can go on as many years as you like.
I love it. It's amazing he would do that with such a clubhouse poison that everyone
Right.
that was really terrible for everybody there. And, inside sources say, blah, 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 get fucked.
Who says Wilson can't catch? He can catch a grown man.
Catches a full ass man. Catches a 40 bomb hit in 2024, Christopher Morel. So, yeah.
All right, our next pick, and I think this is a new one that we didn't do last year. This is going to be for most improved Cub. So who do you see being most improved? Kevin, you want to take this one first?
Sure. I hadn't even really thought about this one too much. Most improved Cub, it's weird because looking across the roster, so many of the guys are just last year they were doing what you sort of hoped they would already, which is what makes it frustrating, I suppose, to not have a sure thing 90-win team on the field right now, where it's like, okay, most of them were doing pretty good as far as what a realistic expectation is for them. Most improved Cub, maybe, I mean, off of what Ken said in terms of the Miguel Amaya offense, I think Amaya has raw power there. I think he does have some patience, and I think this isn't. I don't think he's going to be a destructive Contreras-like force back there. But I'm going to say Amaya. He missed so much time with injury after being such well-regarded and like advanced catching prospect. I'm gonna say it'll sort of go along with my he's going to be the starting catcher by the end of the year thing.
Nice, Ken.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. This is kind of, I guess, making the category a little flexible because it's not necessarily most improved. I'm going to go Ian Happ. And it's less most improved and more people realizing last year really wasn't that bad, actually.
Yeah.
Because he caught a lot of shit, especially in certain parts of Cub Twitter, because his batting average was kind of mediocre for most of the year. But looking at his most of his other stats from 2022 to 23, Ops Plus 117, 2022, 112, 23. On base percentage actually improved substantially from 342 to 360. Slugging percentage about the same, 440, 431. Yeah. Like Ian Happ, turns out, is a pretty darn consistent performer. And given how most Cub fans perceive him, I think that consistency is going to be judged as, that's actual improvement.
Yeah, well, and he's always had a great eye. I think that serves him very well leading off, which I think everyone's expecting him to.
I hope so.
Yeah, so I think that's a great call. My pick, mostly because I need it to be true and want it to be true, is that once he hopefully gets healthy, Jameson Taillon has the season that we thought he might last year. It would be hard to have much worse of a season. Obviously, he showed some signs of light in that second half and looked a lot better. But
so unlucky in the first half too. I mean, wasn't good either, but a combination of bad and
both unlucky and bad, which is a
God, my next album's title. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, and also like in the same way that I think Ken, emotionally, your pick was Mancini last year. Like, how do you not want a guy like Jameson Taillon to?
Seems like a great dude. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how much of a baseball nerd he is. The guy beat cancer. Like there's nothing about him that makes me want to do anything other than root super hard for him. And like in the same way that we used to say about Edwin Jackson, like it's clear that he's doing his best. He's not like out there not giving a shit. It's just not working sometimes. And I hope that it comes together for him. All right, our final few categories before we get into our record prediction. We're going to go with top candidate to come up from the minors and make an impact. I'm looking for both a pitcher and a position player here. Kevin, why don't we start with you? I feel like you're our resident guy who follows Cubs minor league system more than we do. What do you think?
So I'm going to say, like, this is, there was two guys I was between, because, well, obviously PCA is the highest ranking Cubs prospect, and if you could see a path to him getting real regular playing time, if Bellinger gets hurt, if Bush doesn't really pan out and Bellinger goes over to first, you could see that. But I'm going to say, and this wouldn't be till later in the season, but I think in terms of a mature hitter and a Kyle Schwarber like surprise rise, I think Matt Shaw just won't be I think it's going to be hard to keep him out of the majors if you want to win games later in the season, and they're just going to have to find a place for him. Which you hope they're saying the same thing about Owen Casey too. But I'll say for on the hitter side, I think Matt Shaw is just going to be up sooner than most prospects are. I think that was a great first round pick. He looks like he can hit the shit out of the ball. He looks really fun. He's a guy who loved Dustin Pedroia, and I think that's an interesting comp for him. He played shortstop in college, but he'll probably see time at third or second or who knows what. But the bat plays, so I'll say him. And then on the pitching side, I'll say obviously. I'll say Ben Brown. I'm not even sure how much I really feel like that. Ben Brown dominated, and then got beat up a bit. I think settling down into an offseason plan, I think we can see Ben Brown come up in the bullpen, and he's really tall, throws hard, has a hammer curveball. I think he could be a bullpen difference maker late this year, and then see about rotation in the future.
Ken, would you like to go next, or shall I go?
Sure. You go ahead, Adam.
Okay. I also had Matt Shaw. I think that's a pretty easy pick. Obviously, I think the most excitement is around PCA, and I also think anybody who's dumb enough to think that him coming up for a few weeks last year and struggling, assuming that that's like representative of anything, it's not. It's a guy.
He's not going to hit zero for his life. I think
obviously that, and also like he did seem a little green. He seemed like the moment was too big for him sometimes, but it probably was. Like he got called up in the middle of a pennant race. He wasn't getting regular at bats. Like he's the guy who's used to getting, 5 at bats a game all the time. And I think he was trying to do too much. It's like he gets called in to pinch run, and this is his one time in the game. He wants to do so much in that one appearance that he was, it was like the moment was getting a little too big for him. But obviously he was not the reason that the Cubs did not make the playoffs.
The base running honestly was more worrying to me than the 0 for 19, because there was some bad luck there too. A guy who you hope, I mean, if PCA is what you think he can be, that's a Gold Glove center fielder and a guy who's going to steal a good amount of bases and create a lot of havoc with his speed. And it seemed like he just didn't know what to do with his speed. And I think we were told he was maybe more advanced in terms of, I don't want to say like baseball IQ, but just like a sense of the field.
I think some of it could be nerves. I do think that's a factor. Now, Matt Shaw, Shaw will be starting the season in Double-A, correct?
Sounds right.
I feel like it would not surprise me to see him have some sort of like Nico like jump straight from Double-A to the big leagues, especially if the Cubs are shorthanded at some point. But he looks very, very seasoned and very impressive, and I agree that he was a really good pick for the Cubs, and I think he's a good pick to come up and make a difference this year. As for a pitching prospect, call me Dr. Seuss, because I think this is the year that Cade Horton hears a who, as in who's getting called up.
I hope that's exactly how Craig Counsell tells him.
Exactly.
Because he's just like prancing through with a series of rhymes and riddles and like, wait, should I go to Chicago? What are you telling me?
But yeah, I mean, Horton obviously is a guy who the Cubs envision as a starter long term, but it would not surprise me to see him called up and used in more of like a Justin Steele sort of way that we saw Steele coming out of the bullpen a few years ago. So I think he is listed as the Cubs' top pitching prospect.
He is.
So, obviously he's very young as well, but we'll see. Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to double up on the Cade Horton bandwagon. That just seems like the most obvious choice to pick for the pitcher. It seems like he's also like one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, not just the Cub system. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
he's arguably by like national rankings, and he is probably the Cubs' best prospect since Mark Pryor in terms of pitching, in terms of like most highly regarded. So
so that works. That's fine. In terms of position prospects, one caveat I want to say just for this category, and again, this is a personal emotional response, is that I still don't have any use for any of the prospects we got in the deadline trades from 2021. So I'm sure they're all nice guys, and I'm sure it's possible for them to win me over. But my policy for everybody from Canario to Kevin Alcantara to even our precious Pete Crow Armstrong is kind of don't want you here. Sorry.
Right. But I think I think you're identifying a part of being a sports fan too is,
Mhm.
there are feelings that come attached that are sometimes, you can write out on paper why it's not connected to this person, and there's logical reasons, but also it's like,
Mhm.
well, logic doesn't matter with feelings,
Yeah.
too. So it's like, yeah,
And through no fault of their own, they
yeah,
are all
absolutely.
associated with one of the worst baseball days of my entire life, and a
Hmm.
day that broke me, that I'm still trying to figure out how to put the pieces back together from.
Right.
So again, that's no concern of theirs, thankfully.
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with let's just go with Brennan Davis. It would be nice,
Ah,
like
that would be
did
fun.
off spring training well
Love
before he got
that.
hurt again, uh,
Yeah.
and it would
That's the
just be
question with him
nice,
always. Yeah.
yeah, at this point, just to have that kind of be one of the endings of his story is that at some point this year he gets healthy, gets called
That
up,
would rule.
shows them that yeah, I've got some Brennan
Absolutely.
Davis power still left.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we got one more bummer category, and then we're gonna close it out. Gonna close it out strong. First DFA candidate. Who you got?
Well, they already released a thing that pushed. They already pushed me over the edge with the "I'm off the podcast." Like the when Carl Edwards was signed, I can't tell you how happy I was. It brought me back in a way that I was shocked how it hit me. Then he throws 6 innings with a sub 2 ERA and is let go because I assume because the Cubs wanted more guys with optionable flexibility. But
Yeah.
you know what? The optional guys can go up and down. You can put a veteran reliever who's doing well in the bullpen, and then the option guys move around him. That's how I thought that worked. So the fact that Edwards has already been gone makes me go into who's going to be DFA'd. I don't give a shit. That was the only thing I was rooting for coming into
Yeah.
this spring training was that fun guy who's a good pitcher. Also, when he's
Yes,
healthy, he's
yes.
good over the last couple years in a veteran way that we needed. And Hector Neris is great, and obviously has been much more healthy than Carl Edwards over the last few years. But 9 million for him, and then nothing on Carl Edwards ultimately made me sad. So I think Drew Smiley is a candidate for in
Mhm.
terms of just because of money and maybe swinging a deal, getting him to another team. It could happen, but I think it's just going to be relievers. I don't think there's any DFA on the position player side. But yeah,
And to jump off that point for a second as well, that this goes back to what I was bitching about in the Jed Hoyer segment about you're just kind of bringing back last year for this year. And one of the biggest reasons the collapse happened in September of last year is bullpen depth. You
hmm
had three guys the entire year who David Ross could rely on. That's why he kept
Mhm.
going to them game after
yeah.
game after game, even in times where it felt like, why are you bringing Adbert into this 4-run lead in Toronto? It's because he only had three guys. He felt like, yeah, I can bring this home with.
Mhm.
So, what is the biggest need in this offseason? Bullpen depth. You addressed it with Neri, sure, but that's not enough. Jose Cuas is not enough.
Mhm.
Carl Edwards Jr. can still perform, as he did with the Washington Nationals for a couple years in a row.
Yeah.
And apparently that's not good enough for you because Luke Little or something is going to show off your genius. So, yeah, I had another answer for this segment, but fuck it. DFA Jed Hoyer. Again, get him out of here. Fuck it.
It'd be funny because when you DFA a guy, he goes on waivers, right? It would be funny if every other team was like, "Do you want him?" But we don't do this with front office guys usually, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
he,
just we've been through enough that it's hard to not take it personally when it's like, oh, here's this nice thing. No, it's not. It's not.
An
It's not that.
unnecessary tease, it felt like, a signing, like a bullpen depth signing that my wife got excited about, like, so anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you break up with someone and then a few years later you start texting them again and then you ghost them. It's like, well, why did you reach out again? Is this
Yeah.
just like some sort of mind game?
yeah.
Anyway, I think Nicky Mads is gonna get DFA'd if he
Oh,
keeps getting fucking injured. The hamstring, I'm done with it.
that's probably an accurate call. He was a
Yeah.
really, really fun player, coming up, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe it's time for somewhere else.
All right, this is what we're gonna do to round out this episode so that it's not 3 hours long. We're gonna do our record predictions, then we're gonna do a couple bold predictions, and then
Great.
we're gonna close it out with Ken's list of reasons to
Yes.
still love the Cubs as we did last year. Now, last year for record, I had one of the best records you've ever seen,
You did.
and Ken, you went with 75 and 87. You said they would be exactly one game better than the previous year. Kevin, you went with one game or a couple games better than that. You went 78 and 84. I went with 84 and 78, and this was by far my best call of the whole preview. I said, to quote myself, they will be just good enough to keep us engaged, but not good enough to get a wild card spot. 2001 vibes, and I have to say, I pretty much nailed it.
Wow.
So let's see how you're feeling. Ken, we'll start with you. What is your record prediction, and where do you see them falling within the NL Central?
So I want to say before we start that your record prediction was, man, chef's kiss perfect, and your impression just gave Joe Ricketts a boner.
Joe Ricketts, a wonderful man, one of the finest Ricketts we've ever seen, frankly.
If it's possible for an 80-year-old Nebraskan to go swing, he just did. So everything I've said in this podcast to this point has been complaining about bringing back last year's team. So my record prediction for this year, 83 and 79.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfectly frustrating.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I think Shota, it's weird because Stroman was very good the first half of the year, then missed a lot, then wasn't as good. And as I said earlier, we replaced Cody with Cody, and we replaced Marcus with Shota, and then Ross with Counsell. I don't think Ross was as bad a manager as a lot of Cubs fans seem to think he was. I do think it's fair to say Counsell's an upgrade from everything we know. I think the combination of those things and the fact that, I don't know, Michael Busch isn't the 100 first baseman we just named. Maybe he's another one, but it's another pull at a slot machine, I guess. I'll say they end up 85 and 77, and my prediction is that they will tie the Cardinals for the division championship and somehow not make the playoffs. I will say, they will somehow through tiebreakers not get a wild card either. So that's my prediction on that.
Well, as I always, as is my cross to bear, I will be the optimistic one here. I'm giving them 87 and 75, good enough to clinch the division on the Thursday before the final weekend of the season. Because I also think the rest of this division is ass, and I think that a lot of people predicting the Cardinals to be better are like, just because they're the Cardinals, they will be by default, and I think that that's dumb because they don't have pitching. They have a shit rotation.
Right. They added pitching that isn't necessarily that great. They added more pitchers that they didn't have last year. Somehow they did get older even after losing Adam Wainwright, which is interesting. The bats are good. The bats, it is a good lineup, and I think there will be some regression or progression to Amin there a little bit. I don't think they're going to be as bad. I hope they are. I hope so. I will say the division also, it's still bad. It's the second worst division in baseball, I think, behind the AL Central. A little less ass. The Reds, you look across the Reds, there's a lot of young, exciting guys there. We talk about our farm system, but you look at the Reds who have made the majors already, and that's pretty decent. And the Pirates got a little better. The Brewers got worse. But yeah.
Anyway. Hot take that I'm willing to make only because I don't have to be accountable for it because we're not going to do this podcast in the future. I think Ellie De La Cruz is not as great as everyone thinks. I think he's going to be Yasiel Puig. I think he's not going to last in the big leagues long term.
The last couple months of Ellie De La Cruz would give credence to that hot take. Yeah, that he was just astonishing in that first month and a half. But after the league kind of figured out where the holes in his swing were, he's has yet to make an adjustment to that.
Yep. But yeah, that's where I have the Cubs finishing. I think between, just to echo Kevin, I think Counsell helps them win a few extra games. I think not having that black hole at first base helps them. And I also think if they can avoid some of those stretches of like Tyone of the first half, Stroman of the second half, and just have more, even if it's not like elite, more consistency pitching wise, and also more depth bullpen wise, which like maybe they do, maybe they don't, but at the very least, like, it wasn't Mark Leiter's fault that he was getting knocked around the final week of the season. Like, there just wasn't anyone else to go to. So I'm hoping that they don't dig themselves the kind of hole that they did last year, because I think that's part of it that we don't talk about. Like, that surge that they had wore them out by the end of the year. And as much as maybe they choked or Ross made some decisions that weren't great, like, I just think they didn't have a lot left when they like backed themselves into a corner where they had to play almost perfect baseball to buy at the deadline, and then they just kind of ran out of gas.
I do think Ross shouldn't have signed Trey Mancini, Tucker Barnhart, and Edwin Rios and Eric Hosmer. I do think that was some of his. I've heard a lot of other places about, well, the Cubs played at a true level 90-win team. So actually, look, some numbers shook out fine. I'm looking at that roster. I still don't. I still don't see. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, we're going to get into some bold predictions real quick. Last year, Kevin, you said that the Cubs would lose both Happ and Stroman for nothing. I guess they did lose Stroman for nothing, but they did extend Happ, and that happened.
They did, and that ruled. That was a surprise.
Awesome.
I didn't expect to happen. That was an actual extension, as opposed to Nico extended 1 year. I mean, this is. I'm not counting that. I'm sorry. I am counting the Ian Happ 3-year extension. Was great to see. Good baseball. Good for the heart. Very happy about.
You also said that Hosmer would be gone by June and Mervis would be up. That was true.
Hey.
I predicted that we'd get one more signature David Bodie moment. We did not.
Still can, though.
Yeah.
Still can. You never know. I predicted that it would be awesome to see Ethan Roberts healthy and closing on the team by the end of the year. Obviously, that didn't happen, but you never know in the future.
It would be
awesome.
awesome.
And my best prediction, we would see our first $20 beer sold at Wrigley Field, and those beer bats came to play.
Thank you. And so we did get DM'd. Was it from Sandra Marchetti? I hope I'm not giving credit to whoever did DM us, but after you mentioned it, we got tweeted at and was like, oh, that came through. There, you can get beers for $20 at Wrigley. So good call.
And finally, Ken's bold predictions, one of which came true. You predicted that Brendan Davis would get called up. He would do something amazing this first week, but by the end of the year, we would realize that he's just fine. I guess we kind of had that with PCA where he got called up, made that amazing catch, and then was just meh for the rest of it. You also predicted that Morel would get called up quickly and that we would hopefully have a moment like his first career home run. And boy, did we ever.
Yeah.
Off against the White Sox, maybe the moment of the year.
I've redeemed myself. Nice.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Absolutely. So let's get some quick bold predictions, and then we're going to close it out with Ken's list of reasons to convince himself not to walk into the to Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan, yeah. I'll say my bold, I had written down, I think they will actually finally acquire a star level player at the trade deadline.
Nice.
Because you have, but I mean, I've made this prediction. That's how I felt going into free agency this year was they have to go big eventually, right? I'm playing myself.
Yeah, especially after getting counsel, it was obviously they will.
Exactly. Where you just can't be a poor man's with more money twins forever.
Right.
Maybe they can, because we haven't finished above the Twins since we started doing this podcast, by the way, in terms of wins. I'm not kidding. That is spiritually, I think where our top of the baseball operations wants to be is a team like that. But he wishes. So I'll say we acquire a Pete Alonso, Jose Ramirez, someone that shocks us at the deadline. But what I really want to put in the universe in a secret type way, as we're leaving this podcast after next week's episode anyway, Kyle Hendricks to make one fucking all-star team.
I had that exact pick. Let's go.
Okay, the fact that he might be literally the player with the best career currently active in Major League Baseball who has not made one godforsaken all-star team. So, it's my heart overhead, but the miles per hour ticked up. He can put together a good fucking half. Let's put him in the all-star game where he should have been several times already once.
Word for word, I have Kyle Hendricks has a great first half and finally makes the All-Star team.
Great.
And it's definitely an emotional pick, but it's also not an impossibility whatsoever. He's a great pitcher.
Absolutely.
So my bold prediction, and this is a very specific one that after my job in this category last year is definitely me out over my skis here, but I'm going to put it out just to try to manifest it anyway. Sunday, June 23rd. Is going to be the 40th anniversary of the Ryne Sandberg game. And the Cubs are celebrating by dedicating the Ryne Sandberg statue at Wrigley Field that day. And in that afternoon's contest against the Mets, Christopher Morel is going to hit a game-tying home run off of Edwin Diaz, and the Cubs are going to win in 11 innings.
I like it.
Oh, man. What a perfect mirror of that day's past. Would be so great. The idea of someone going Sandberg on Sandberg Day would be. I'm seeing the camera cuts back and forth already. It's and Morel's a perfect choice.
That is the script I've written in my mind.
Yeah.
My other pick. There was a lot of talk last year about the summer of Talkman. I'm gonna say optimistically, we're gonna have the fall of Talkman.
Oh yeah, let's shift it
what
later.
That means it's not that he's gonna be elite, but that the Cubs will make the playoffs and he will have a big moment. I'm gonna go with a talk off. This is gonna be a home run, not a game saving catch. I'm gonna say that he has a pinch hit walk off home run at Wrigley Field in October. That would be really cool. This is also a very optimistic, like not even a real pick, but something I would love to see. The losing to the Braves the way the Cubs did in that final week of the season was so fucking excruciating, and Ronald Acuna celebrating 71 stolen bases or whatever the fuck that was. Nothing would make me happier than the Cubs being this year's Phillies and knocking the Braves out of the playoffs. And then we would get a recreation of my favorite gif from last year, that guy at Wrigley like derisively doing a joke chop and going fuck you.
That was a great gif. Yeah, the real like duh chop and fuck you was so great. We've said it before on the podcast, but what really was great for me that came out of that series against the Braves was Boog Shambi feeling like a Cub for the first time, like showing some attitude and some like being one of us, a little bit of the national coming out of him.
The next stolen base being like, oh, are we gonna stop the game again?
Yeah, exactly. That was, and JD getting edgy. JD, obviously, everyone knows he's a Hall of Famer to me as a broadcaster. That was so fun, and this is making me more excited on the Ken baseball scale, because it's fun to hate teams. It's fun, and it's fun to imagine the surprises that can happen in a season on individual levels among players, in terms of rivalries, in terms of surprise results. No matter what we think is going to happen this year as we're predicting these things, we don't know, and that's fucking amazing. And I can't wait to hate the Braves. I can't wait to sink their asses. That would be amazing. Even if we don't survive to the end, killing them on the way down, I'm excited already.
Totally. It's like 2015. Like, yeah, you lost to the Mets, but you beat the fucking Cardinals. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Ken, it is time to close out this episode with your list of however many things you have to be to still love the Cubs, or however you want to describe it.
Yes, I am happy to do so. And in contrast to pretty much all of the negativity I've been spreading on this podcast, the list has grown this year. It is now at 32. So yeah, we're going to start the reasons to still cheer for the Cubs in 2024 in spite of the awfulness of Jet. And the most obvious place to start is, of course, the number one reason, Ryan Stanberg Statue Dedication Day. We have a chance, especially after the offseason he's had with the prostate cancer diagnosis, which we have apparently some real good updates on.
Oh, good.
Yeah, his last test with the doctor was a couple weeks ago after 4 rounds of chemo. They are detecting no cancerous activity at all. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, my hope is that he will be well enough to be there in person on June 23rd. And we have a chance, if that's the case, to give him a really just special day. Like, in my mind, like Ted Williams at the All-Star game kind of day, that just to show him, this is what you mean to us. This, after all you've fought through, this is all of us here for you. And that's going to be the game I'm most excited to attend. And really is going to be the thing that calls forth all those old emotions I talked about. And it's going to be wonderful. Number 2, the Kyle Hendricks Renaissance Tour is longer than Beyonce's. Number 3, the Cubs sponsoring Glenn Burke's Legacy Walk plaque. One of the things they did last year that I cannot complain about at all, that I got to give a speech at the dedication, got to tell Laura Ricketts that seeing the Cubs name on the plaque in Boys Town honoring the first gay player that we know of in Major League Baseball history made me as proud to be a Cub fan as Sandberg or Anthony Rizzo.
That's awesome.
Number 4, and the next few are going to be kind of a theme, see if you can detect it. Number 4, giving Anthony Rizzo the hero's welcome he deserves in September. Number 5, letting Javi Baez know we've still got his back. 6, an opening day standing O for Chris Bryant. 7, cheering even louder as Wilson Contreras urges us to boo him. And 8, urging Kyle Schwarber to dance again.
Great. What a man, I didn't realize there would be 5 such days
Yes.
of that.
Yeah, I'm remembering that the Rockies open or the
Mhm.
team the Cubs play in the home opener, so that'll be fun.
Yes. Yeah, I've got tickets for the home opener, so that is going to be my personal checklist this year, is making sure I attend at least one game in each of those 5 series, and every single one of those guys is going to get huge cheers every at bat, no matter what they do for me.
My brothers and I had got tickets for the Rizzo and the Javi, and so
Good.
I'm hoping I can make them. My brothers will certainly be there, and yeah,
I
I'm
will,
planning on it.
I will be there. We will meet up. It will be great. Number 9, making my first ever visit to Craig Counsell Ass Park. Number 10, Christopher Morel celebrates a walk-off by going full Magic Mike. Again, that might be a personal thing, but yeah, that would be just.
What if he goes straight Winnie the Pooh? Just he went shirt off last time, shirt stays on, no pants.
We discovered that this time that the Cubs pants can just kind of rip off the front. That's part of the new jerseys.
I was going
Apparently.
to say they're transparent anyway, right? Let's
Yeah.
Exactly.
what are we fooling with here?
Yes. Number 11, Ian Happ's Rhino Strong T-shirt. Number 12, Jason Hayward visiting his baseball academy on the West Side.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yep. 13, Dansby's flirtations with Team Fire Jed Sell the Team. I don't know how in he's on it, but you get these vibes every so often that he's going into the front office and he's a little upset, and I'm okay with that. Number 14, Shota Imanaga's delivery, making me Google what's Japanese for El Duque.
Oh, that's a good comp. Yeah,
Yeah.
wiggly
Nice.
and weird.
Yeah, the leg kick. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a perfect comparison, but there's enough there where,
Yeah.
And if he can perform like El Duque in the playoffs, would totally take that. Number 15, as I mentioned earlier, every Miguel Amaya start means a day without Jan Gomes. 16, Adbert's Twitter song requests.
The best Twitter follow, the most pure
Yes.
Twitter follow on this Cubs team. He tweets like a fan. It's amazing.
Yes, play the damn song.
Yeah.
17, Big Z's 7th inning stretch.
Is
18?
that happening? Or
It happened last year. Have you not seen it?
Yes. Oh no, I did see it. Yes, I did see it.
Yes.
Yes, last year. But
He
yeah,
showed everybody how it's done.
yes.
18, Dexter Fowler and Cliff Floyd giving each other shit on the pregame show. Underrated aspect of Marquee. When they get those two together, chemistry is perfect.
Nice.
19, the different varieties of Justin Steele domination. Sometimes it's a 10K game, sometimes 3Ks and nothing but ground balls. Love each one of them. 20, Carey and Aramis going into the Cubs Hall of Fame, which is also going to be during the Rizzo series in September.
Oh my gosh, what a
Yes.
Labor Day weekend.
Yes. Number 21, Patrick Wisdom's walk-up music. I Want to Dance with Somebody. You can't do better than that. 22, Patrick Mooney calling Jed on his bullshit. Number 23, Pat Hughes giving North Shore adult diapers the same gravitas he gives Crane Kenny.
Appropriately so.
Yes. Number 24, this year's Cubs Pride jerseys. They are now number 24, which means you gay, we gay. 25, Seiya identifying himself as the best low-key comedian on the team. 26, the last rays of golden hour sunlight hitting the right center field bleachers during night games. Number 27, Boog and JD becoming the one thing Braves fans hate more than anti-racism. This is a brand new one. Number 28, Hector Neris putting the professor in the same company as Zach Greinke. Love it.
Oh, that's cool.
Number 29, Cubs prospect Jefferson Rojas putting some respect on Javi's name in the Athletic.
Hell yeah.
Number 30, as I mentioned earlier, the return of Adam, Kevin, and Ken to Citi Field. And then these last two are kind of wish fulfillment, again, putting these out in the universe. Number 31, as Ken Rosenthal pointed out, Craig Counsell's contract runs substantially longer than Jed's. And number 32, Kim Ang is just waiting for a team to offer her a new job.
Oh man, you could not get more Ken than Hoyer out and in.
Yes. Make it happen, universe.
32 good reasons to be happy and excited for this Cubs year.
Well, folks, we did it
Yeah.
once again. Ken, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ken Schultz _, Instagram at Ken Thin Guy, and on OutSports writing about baseball all year.
Adam, where can people find you?
People can find me at Adam Mamawala on all the things, and on the road doing some shows. You can look it up on my link tree and all that good stuff. And in Dallas this weekend. What about you, Kev?
I'm at Kevin McCaff on everything. Find me there. I'm traveling a lot, doing a bunch of shows, and I will be making a bunch of Cubs games and crossing off a bunch of away games. A lot of new stadiums this year. I'm in Florida in June. I'm going to hit both Tampa and the Miami Stadium. Fuck them both to hell. But I'll cross them off. That's great. Going to hit Milwaukee this year.
I'm crossing off Texas and Houston. Theoretically, is going to
Nice.
be part of my list. And to our loyal listener, thank you so much. We appreciate. Anyone who has stuck with us through this ride, we do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, shout out, you know who you are. Shout out Tyler the pastry man and Tom Dog and
Tom Dog, Andy Bond, Sandra. Yeah, we've got a nice core of people, and we're sorry to leave you, but we're going to come back with one more fun look back over the years in a week or so. But what a season preview! Thank you, Ken, for blessing this podcast. A lot of my favorite episodes were the Ken Schultz episodes. It's been great to listen to Ken. We'll listen to each other in real life going forward too, but also read Ken if you don't. I always say the best writer who happens to write about baseball.
You guys have been a highlight of my week for the past 7 years, and will continue to be so, even though we won't be recording it. He started through it as started coming to the surface. Sorry about that.
No. It's our pleasure. And listen, just like we'll be active on Twitter, I know that our group chat will live on for many years to come. So we've got that to look forward to, and a great game in May.
Oh, yes.
Cubs Mets.
Play the damn song.